Maya wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished her morning workout routine at Central Park. The 25-year-old fitness instructor had just completed her usual 5-mile run, followed by an intense bodyweight training session. Her designer athletic wear gleamed in the early morning sun, and her perfectly styled ponytail barely showed signs of her rigorous exercise. She was everything people expected from a social media fitness influencer with over 200,000 followers. Before we dive in, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. As she packed her yoga mat into her expensive gym bag, Maya noticed a disheveled man sitting on a nearby bench. His clothes were torn and dirty, his hair unkempt, and he appeared to be in his early 30s. A small cardboard sign rested against his leg that read, "Anything helps. God bless." Maya had seen homeless people before, but something about this particular morning made her feel unusually bold and somewhat cruel. She walked over to where the man sat, her phone already in hand. Maya had been struggling with engagement on her social media posts lately, and she thought this might make for interesting content. The homeless man looked up at her with tired brown eyes that seemed to hold depths of stories untold. "Hey there," Maya said with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm Maya, and I couldn't help but notice you sitting here. I have a proposition for you." The man shifted slightly on the bench but remained silent, watching her with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "I'm a fitness trainer, and I believe everyone has potential inside them, no matter their circumstances," Maya continued, her voice getting louder as she noticed a few joggers slowing down to listen. "So here's my offer. If you can do 10 perfect push-ups right here, right now, I'll marry you. What do you say?" The small crowd that had gathered started to murmur among themselves. Some people pulled out their phones to record what they assumed would be an entertaining spectacle. Maya felt a rush of excitement as she realized this could go viral and boost her online presence significantly. The homeless man looked at Maya for a long moment, then at the growing crowd of onlookers. His expression was unreadable as he slowly stood up from the bench. He was taller than Maya had expected, probably around 6 feet, with broad shoulders that were hidden beneath his oversized, worn jacket. "10 push-ups for marriage?" he asked quietly, his voice surprisingly clear and educated. "That seems like quite a bargain." Maya giggled and held up her phone to record. "That's right, 10 perfect push-ups and you'll have yourself a wife, but they have to be military style, none of that halfway stuff." The man nodded slowly and began to remove his heavy jacket. Underneath, he wore a faded gray t-shirt that revealed muscular arms that seemed oddly well-defined for someone living on the streets. The crowd pressed closer, some people making bets about whether he could even do one proper push-up. "What's your name?" Maya asked, still recording. "Marcus," he replied simply, as he handed his jacket to an elderly woman in the crowd who had been watching with concern rather than amusement. Marcus walked to an open area of grass and looked around at all the phones pointed in his direction. The morning sun cast long shadows across the park as more people stopped their morning routines to watch the unusual scene unfold. "Are you ready?" Maya asked, her voice full of mock enthusiasm. Marcus dropped down into a perfect plank position. His form was impeccable, his body forming a straight line from head to toe. The murmuring crowd fell silent as he began his first push-up. It was textbook perfect, his chest nearly touching the ground before he pushed back up with controlled strength. By the third push-up, Maya's smug expression began to fade. Marcus moved with the precision and discipline of someone who had clearly done thousands of these before. His breathing remained steady and controlled. By the seventh push-up, the crowd had gone completely quiet except for the sound of Marcus counting under his breath. His movements were so fluid and strong that it became clear to everyone watching that this was no ordinary homeless man. When Marcus completed the 10th push-up and stood back up, brushing grass from his hands, the silence stretched for several long seconds. Maya stared at him with her mouth slightly open, her phone still recording but forgotten in her hand. "Well," Marcus said, dusting off his shirt, "I believe you owe me a wedding." The crowd began to whisper excitedly, but Maya felt her confidence crumbling. This wasn't going according to her plan at all. She had expected either failure that would make good content, or maybe a few sloppy attempts that she could laugh about later. Those were actually really good," Maya stammered, not sure what to say next. Marcus smiled for the first time, and it completely transformed his face. Despite the rough beard and unkempt hair, his smile was warm and genuine. "Thank you. I try to stay in shape, even under difficult circumstances." An older gentleman in the crowd stepped forward. He was wearing an expensive suit and had been watching the entire exchange with growing interest. "Excuse me, young man, but those were some of the best push-ups I've ever seen. Where did you learn form like that?" Marcus glanced at Maya, who was still standing there looking confused and slightly embarrassed. "I learned in the Marines, sir. Served 2 tours overseas before." He paused, looking down at his worn shoes, "before life got complicated." The revelation hit the crowd like a wave. Suddenly, Maya's cruel joke didn't seem funny anymore. Several people in the crowd began to look at her with disapproval, and she could feel her viral moment slipping away from her in the worst possible way. "You're a veteran?" asked the elderly woman who was still holding Marcus's jacket. "Yes, ma'am. Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, discharged 3 years ago." His voice carried a mixture of pride and sadness that made several people in the crowd shift uncomfortably. Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks as she realized how badly she had misjudged the situation. Her phone was still recording, capturing her own embarrassment for posterity. "I served in Vietnam," said the older gentleman in the suit. "What unit were you with, son?" 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, sir. We were stationed in Afghanistan for most of my service." The two men began talking, and Maya found herself becoming an observer to her own spectacle. She watched as Marcus spoke with quiet dignity about his service, carefully avoiding the details that were clearly painful for him to remember. "So what brings you to this situation, if you don't mind me asking?" the businessman inquired gently. Marcus was quiet for a moment, glancing around at all the people listening to his story. Maya could see him weighing how much to reveal to a crowd of strangers who had just watched him be humiliated for entertainment. "When I came back, things were different. I had some trouble adjusting, struggled with nightmares and anxiety. Lost my job, then my apartment. Been trying to get back on my feet ever since, but it's harder than people think when you don't have an address or clean clothes for interviews." The crowd had grown to about 30 people by now, and Maya noticed that many of them were looking at her with expressions ranging from disappointment to outright anger. Her brilliant plan for viral content was rapidly turning into a public relations nightmare. "Young lady," said the elderly woman holding Marcus's jacket, "I think you owe this man an apology." Maya felt her face burning with shame. She had come to the park that morning thinking she was better than everyone else, especially better than a homeless person who couldn't possibly challenge her. Now she found herself facing a decorated war veteran who had just demonstrated more grace and dignity in 10 minutes than she had shown in years. I'm sorry, Maya said quietly, finally turning off her phone's camera. I didn't know. I shouldn't have assumed. Marcus stepped closer to her, and Maya was surprised to see that his eyes held no anger, only a kind of patient sadness. It's okay. People see what they expect to see. I'm used to it by now. No, it's not okay, Maya said, her voice growing stronger as she realized the full weight of what she had done. I was being cruel and making assumptions. I thought I could use you for content, and that was wrong. The businessman had been listening to this exchange with interest. Marcus, you said you're looking for work. Yes, sir, though it's been challenging without a permanent address. I run a construction company, and we're always looking for good people. Military experience is a plus. Would you be interested in talking about a position? Maya watched as Marcus's entire demeanor changed. His shoulders straightened, and for a moment she could see the soldier he had been. I would be very interested, sir. I'm not afraid of hard work. Good, here's my card. Can you come by the office tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock? We'll start with some paperwork and see how things go. Marcus took the business card with hands that Maya noticed were shaking slightly. Thank you, sir. I'll be there. As the crowd began to disperse, several other people approached Marcus. The elderly woman introduced herself as Mrs. Patterson and insisted on giving him her contact information in case he needed help with anything. A young mother offered to pack him some lunch, and a jogger who had stopped to watch gave him $20. Maya stood there watching this outpouring of kindness and support, feeling smaller with each passing minute. Her cruel joke had backfired completely, but she was beginning to realize that maybe that was exactly what she needed. Marcus, she called out as he was preparing to leave with his new jacket, and the business card safely tucked in his pocket. He turned to look at her, and again she was struck by the complete absence of anger in his expression. I really am sorry. What I did was terrible, and you handled it with more class than I deserved. Marcus studied her face for a moment. You know, Maya, everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is what we do after we realize we've made them. I want to do something to make this right. Is there anything I can do to help? Well, Marcus said with a slight smile, you could start by thinking before you make jokes at other people's expense. You never know what someone's story really is. Maya nodded, feeling tears starting to form in her eyes. You're right, I will. As Marcus walked away with Mrs. Patterson and several other new friends from the crowd, Maya sat down heavily on the bench where she had first seen him. She looked at her phone, which still showed the paused recording of her failed attempt at viral fame. Instead of posting the video as she had originally planned, Maya deleted it. Then she sat there for a long time, thinking about the person she had become and the person she wanted to be. That evening, Maya posted a different kind of video on her social media accounts. In it, she talked honestly about her experience that morning, about her own assumptions and prejudices, and about the lesson a homeless veteran had taught her about dignity and grace. She didn't mention Marcus by name or show his face, respecting his privacy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Instead of the superficial likes and comments she usually received, people shared their own stories about misjudging others, about veterans they knew who were struggling, and about the importance of treating everyone with respect and kindness. 3 weeks later, Maya was walking through the same area of Central Park when she saw a familiar figure. Marcus was sitting on the same bench, but everything about him was different. He was clean-shaven, wearing new work clothes and reading a newspaper. When he saw her approaching, he stood up with a genuine smile. "Maya, how are you doing?" "I'm good, Marcus. You look great. How's the new job?" "It's been wonderful. Mr. Henderson, the man who hired me, has been incredibly supportive. I'm working as a foreman now, and I even found a small apartment nearby." Maya felt a wave of happiness wash over her. "That's amazing. I'm so happy for you." "I wanted to thank you," Marcus said, surprising her. "Thank me for what?" "For giving me a chance to show people who I really am. I know that wasn't your intention, but sometimes good things come from unexpected places." Maya shook her head in amazement. "You're thanking me for being cruel to you." "I'm thanking you for helping me remember that I'm still worth something, even when things are at their worst. When I did those push-ups, I felt like myself again for the first time in years." They talked for a few more minutes, and Maya learned that Marcus had been using his first paychecks to help other veterans in similar situations. He had connected with a local organization that provided support for homeless veterans and had become a volunteer advocate. As they prepared to part ways, Marcus turned to Maya with a mischievous grin. "You know, you never did follow through on that marriage proposal." Maya laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd had in weeks. "I think we both know that was a terrible idea." "Probably," Marcus agreed, "but I have to admit it led to some pretty good things." After Marcus left to go home to his new apartment, Maya sat on the bench and reflected on how much had changed in just 3 weeks. She had lost some followers after her honest video, but the ones who remained were more engaged and supportive than ever before. More importantly, she had gained something much more valuable than social media fame. She had learned to see beyond surfaces and assumptions. Maya's fitness career had taken a different direction, too. Instead of focusing solely on physical appearance and viral content, she had started working with local community centers to provide free fitness classes for people who couldn't afford gym memberships. She had partnered with veteran support organizations to create specialized programs for former military personnel dealing with physical and mental health challenges. The experience had taught her that true strength wasn't about perfect push-ups or social media followers. It was about the courage to admit when you're wrong, the wisdom to learn from your mistakes, and the compassion to help others without expecting anything in return. 6 months later, Maya received an invitation in the mail. Marcus was getting married to a nurse he had met at the VA hospital where he had been receiving counseling. The invitation included a personal note. "Thank you for helping me remember my worth. I hope you'll join us in celebrating not just our wedding, but the power of second chances." At the wedding, Maya watched as Marcus exchanged vows with Sarah, a kind woman who clearly saw him for the good man he was. During his speech, Marcus mentioned how a chance encounter in the park had changed his life, not because of cruelty, but because it had led him to remember his own strength and worth. Maya realized then that the story that had begun with her attempt to humiliate a stranger had become something entirely different. It had become a story about redemption, growth, and the unexpected ways that people can change each other's lives. She understood now that the most engaging stories aren't always the ones we plan to tell, but the ones that teach us who we really are and who we have the potential to become.